Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining. We're very excited to have Dr. Shamardi here tonight. I am Sheila Roth. I'm head of clinical education at Pearl, and I am joined by wonderful Kimberly. She's going to be our partner of strategic growth, so she's got all kinds of tricks for us tonight. We are also happy to be hosting with Patterson. I'm very happy that we're doing this together. And tonight's going to be a very special evening. For those of you just joining, I'll give you a little background on Dr. Shamardi. We were just discussing a minute ago that he was born in Malaga, Spain, raised very close here to me in Southern California, ended up graduating from Tufts and then did specialty work for perio in Pennsylvania, UPenn, and currently working as a clinical professor at Harvard, the periodontics program. Still doing lots of lecturing. It's very hard to get Dr. Shamardi. I'm very thankful that he decided to join us this evening. And also, I think the important thing here is how much he's going to contribute with all of his knowledge, both tonight, and then he has a special kind of hands-on course he's going to be starting to also take kind of what's happening in this webinar and moving that into some that are a little more interested in focusing on mastering clinical confidence in surgical cases. And then a couple personal things. He enjoys traveling and sports. I had to learn tonight what Real Madrid was. So for those of you that are know all that, I'm embarrassed to admit I had to ask that question. And Dr. Shamardi, 3 languages you're fluent in. Share those with us.
Yeah, we got English, Spanish, and Farsi.
Wow, amazing. Well, thank you again for joining us this evening. You've been wonderful for our dental space as well as Pearl. We will let you take it away. We will be answering lots of questions at the end. And so those of you that have additional questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will be by your side if you need anything. Thanks again, Dr. Shamardi.
Thank you so much. Let me go and start sharing my screen here. All right. And a big hello again to everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. As you can see, I'm going to move my little picture of myself to the side. There we go. Perfect. So as you all know, tonight's lecture is on artificial intelligence, regulations, concerns, and its place within healthcare. So really interesting topic on a technology that, of course, is taking over the world, as we know. And we're going to learn a lot, not just from within the dental space, but within healthcare and outside. So have a really good, broad understanding of where things have come from, where things are headed, and then also see from the dental space, of course, how we can apply this to our everyday lives and our jobs and just do better treatment and have better outcomes for our patients. So quite a bit to figure and get through. We're going to have a little under an hour of time. So I'm going to do my best to get through a lot of info in a short period of time. And as mentioned, by all means, put as many questions as you want. As soon as we're done, we'll leave time to stick around and go through that. So without further ado, thanks, Sheila, for the great intro. Don't need to go into any more background. And a big thanks not only to Patterson, but also, of course, to Pearl, who is hosting this along with them. So quick overview of what we're going to do in this very brief time. Talk a little bit about the AI revolution as a whole, but really understand the bioethics and challenges. Again, a lot of people are concerned about some sides of AI, and we want to understand what some of those concerns are and why. Understand the regulatory controls, what actually is enforceable right now, and what's historically been there to help kind of manage and mitigate these fears that we all have. Then we'll again touch on how this is being applied within healthcare and dentistry, and a few words at the end about what the future is going to bring. And if you imagine the last 5 or 10 years, what AI was, just this idea and where it's become now, obviously the future is the sky's the limit. So we'll discuss that. So let's just jump right in. And first, some backgrounds about the AI revolution as a whole. So as we know, when we talk about AI, we're really looking at a term applied to a machine or software. It's got this capability of simulating intelligent human behavior and instantaneous problem solving, calculation, et cetera. We've all seen ChatGPT, the magic it's able to spew out literally instantly. And this is just a quantum leap in technology and the direction things are going. And, you know, we think about our cars now. Not only do we have cars that are battery driven, but they're all AI controlled. We've got now, you know, driving with no hands and being able to have the car with self-driving features. You look obviously, not for good reasons, of course, when we think about wars today, but what the AI is doing in terms of drone technology, in terms of, missile technology, tanks, etc. Everything is starting to shift. This is literally a multi-billion going to $1 trillion industry in terms of where things are being applied with AI within the military. And really, when you look at global businesses, what we're finding now is now over 1 out of 3 businesses that exist are using AI today. And these numbers are just exponentially growing. 42% of businesses are exploring. So imagine that basically tells us that 3 out of 4 businesses are either actively using or looking into seeing how they can actually make use of it for their business. And understand that these numbers are just going to go up even more, and you can see the spread all through the world. This is really a unanimous thing, and some countries are adopting it a little bit more aggressively than others. Now, we look at the AI healthcare market as a whole globally. North America has the biggest share between Canada and Mexico, and of course in the US. We've got almost a 60% revenue share. We're the largest market, although, as you can see on this chart, the fastest growing is more towards the India and Asia side. So India and China, of course, huge technological companies, biggest populations in the world, but you think of Japan, Australia, Singapore, a lot of the other islands over there. We're seeing a huge growth in this AI globally, but still biggest share is here in North America. So again, what's the big rub? Sure, we got ChatGPT and it can do stuff, but what else can it do? So not only are we thinking of the increased efficiency and the automation of tasks, again, we think in ChatGPT, but also data analysis and insights. One thing that's good, of course, about any AI-related software or program is available 24/7. There's no work hours or times where it can't do the job for us. So again, efficiency is key. We have increased personalization and accuracy. We'll talk about that a little bit on the dental side of things. And at the end of the day, when applied right and in the right format, it can drastically reduce risk issues. And we'll discuss that from the medical standpoint. So it's got a lot of purported benefits, but there are also some fears and downside. Of course, the number one for everybody is job displacement. If now there are literal robots and software that can do the job significantly better, quicker, more efficiently, and at 24 hours of the day, then there's going to be certain jobs in the environment that are going to be literally phased out. And of course, that's creating a lot of anxiety, right? The big question as well are the ethical ones. How do we know that this software, these robots, so to speak, are not going to gather personal data and personal information? So we'll talk about the regulatory stuff coming up. And then a big one for us as dental professionals, lack of creativity and empathy. And we'll describe how this plays really an important role for us as dental professionals in terms of helping secure our job moving forward with the AI involvement. Cost and complexity. You don't just implement AI into your business like going to Burger King, right? It comes with a big cost in some of the bigger, medical manufacturing in different fields. And overall, it's a trust issue. How do we know that things are going to work out and the machines are literally not going to turn literally and figuratively against us, right? So there are some concerns with that. And with that, one of the concerns comes from the bioethical side. So we always have to take ethics into consideration anytime anybody's personal health data and information is being shared or accessible and at stake. So look here in the US, and they did a Pew Research Center study, and what they found is that 60% of Americans are uncomfortable with a provider that's relying on AI. The standpoint and the thought to that is, well, if my doctor or a clinician is not able to do the job well enough on their own and they're relying on some software or program or machine to do it, there's a little bit of apprehension behind that. And certainly as dental professionals, we're going to know our job first and foremost, and we'll describe how we're going to use an incredible technology like Pearl, not to go in contrast to us, but to actually be synergistic and work with us. But you look also from the other standpoint, 57% primary concern is the patient-provider relationship harm. Like we said, there is a person-to-patient relationship. As dental professionals, as medical professionals, there is the empathy side of things, that interpersonal side where Obviously, if things are going through a machine or a program or a software, that's suddenly gone. And at the end of the day, that takes away from that experience, right? So as a result of this, you're seeing that even though this technology is booming, there still are questions, there still are concerns. It has not been universally adopted across the board. And of course, there's other big risks, right? Perception versus reality. We see this a lot, of course, nowadays on social media. You see photos that are generated that can look like somebody, but they really aren't. And so these things are being abused quite often, and a lot of ways in the wrong way, I should say. Whether it's in news, whether it's in politics, whether it's generating stories that end up being fake. And we've seen this across the news all the time, where especially in the military and national security, there's images that might make us think we're at war. They might think there's some security breach going on, and these are just altered images, right? So there's a lot of things that AI does that's beneficial, but there's a lot of things that in the wrong hands and used the wrong way can create a lot of chaos. And of course, this is where some of these fears and this bioethical side of things are coming in. So one good study looking at these ethical issues done in the Middle East found that in general, in healthcare, the current laws that are there are simply not enough to protect an individual's health data. So ultimately, an AI program is able to potentially, in the wrong hands, this data that they're collecting can potentially be hacked. And we know how cybersecurity is such a big deal now. So if we get these programs that are gathering this tremendous amount of information and those are now hacked, well, now that's our data, our personal data and health data that's going to be literally left out in the open and at risk. So things like genetic testing and bioinformation companies, they're not really legally or closely monitored, right? They're selling our data to these pharmaceutical and biotech companies. So you set up these situations where potentially, again, there could be a lot of things that are going actually the opposite way, right? A lot of the data that's taken is not always done with our consent. And that again, is where these bioethical issues keep coming into play. So these questions and concerns that we all need to ask, regardless of what field we're on, is that for our patients, how are they going to receive proper informed consent via AI? What's that consent form going to look like? We know what our one-page extraction consent form is. Well, what are we going to do for AI, right? And how wide will this make the social gap in job replacement? Ultimately, like we said, there are going to be certain industries that this is going to impact directly and significantly. But what is this also going to do for economy, for the social gap? Is this going to help more the more elite class, and what is it going to do to the lower class as well, right? What again is it going to do about empathy, which again we discussed in terms of how we relate our patient and doctor relationship? And like we said, how is this going to reach these countries with less financial resources? Right now, these countries that we saw that are all adopting this technology in mass are those that have the most resources and the most money. So what about the other countries that would benefit from this way more, but simply don't have the resources to adopt it? So all we might be seeing as a result of this is a simple widening of that social gap. The rich countries continue to get infinitely richer, and the not so fortunate countries are just left even further behind than they are right now. So there are a lot of these bioethical questions and concerns. So to that point of these regulatory bodies and what is actually out there to help kind of enforce this, we can look in two different areas, one across in Europe and one right here in the US. And when you look across the pond in Europe, they have a organization known as the General Data Protection Regulation Agency, known as GDPR. This had first started in 2016, but entered full effect in 2018. And for those in Europe, they should be very happy because this is actually the toughest privacy and security law that exists in the world, right? So this is really out there to protect any businesses in and even outside of the EU. So they will even impose their obligations onto organizations that are outside of Europe, as long as they are targeting and collecting data to people that are within the EU. So they have created this really airtight regulation system with fines that are literally in the tens of millions of euros. So this is really the best kind of regulatory body that's out there. Now, the history of this goes way back as early as 1950. In fact, that photo I've put you there is the actual photo from the meeting, the European Convention on Human Rights in 1950. And basically, now going on 75 years, they had come to a conclusion that everybody has the right to respect for his private and family life, his home, and his correspondence. So these kind of basic kind of human rights, Bill of Rights, we can say, started 75 years ago. And as you can see, as time went on, between banner ads, online banking, Facebook, we started getting into these areas where technology started to take off, but it started to create some friction with these Convention on Human Rights, because now some of this stuff in terms of respect for private life and your home and your correspondence are now kind of being put out there in the world. And of course, you look at social media now, and this is now going out there, and so much of your private information has become more public. And this is why these regulatory bodies are so important, and why you're seeing so much more of a fight being put up by these organizations. Now, what about us here in the US? This is a photo from George W. Bush in 2008 when he signed the executive order for an organization known as GINA, which stands for the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. Now, this, for the Americans who are on the call, you'll see this is protecting US citizens from discrimination based on their genetic information in both health insurance, which we'll go through as being Title I, and employment in Title II. So essentially, GINA is a two-tier protectionist agency put in place for Americans that will make sure that genetic information is not going to be a determinant of getting hired or fired. What do we mean by that? We'll take a closer look at each. For Title I, when we discuss health insurance, what basically happens is that GINA is going to prohibit a health insurance from practicing discrimination. So a health insurance company that you apply to may not use your genetic information to determine whether or not you are eligible for insurance or not, whether that is for coverage, underwriting, or premium setting decisions. So this is really important. So that, health insurance protections of GINA, they extend to private health insurance, Medicare, Medi-Cal, federal employee benefits, and the veteran health as well. So this is really important, because imagine from a genetic side, if you happen to have a precondition and a health insurance company, before they decided whether or not they took you or not, could have access to your genetic information. Well, they could look at you and say, well, your genetic information says that you're more susceptible to one or two of these possible diseases. So you know what? You're a liability for us. We're not going to provide you insurance. And next thing you know, you're out there in the wind. So having this Title I is protecting us all from the health insurance side. So that's tier Title I. Then the second one is from the employment side, which has been around since 2011. This is implemented by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And basically, it does the same thing from the employment standpoint, where an employer is not able to use genetic information to make hiring and firing and promotion type decisions. So again, if you're trying to bring in somebody into your office, you can't simply do a background genetic test and see whether or not that makes them a better or potential worse hire. Again, this is discriminatory, and so we have this GINA in place policy to help protect that. So it's very reassuring to see that both in Europe and in the US, that there are these regulatory bodies that do exist. So despite the fact that the concerns, of course, are what's going to happen with our information, it's good to know that there is at least something there to help kind of provide us a little bit of buffer and give us a certain level of protection. So how does this all now evolve with AI in the healthcare world? And this is what we want to take a quick peek at right now. Now, there are essential AI technologies in healthcare, some of which we know, some of which we didn't even know about, that are literally booming. Things like machine learning, robotic process automation, natural language processing. So when we think of the technologies and the cases in terms of early disease prediction, real-time prioritization, imaging, drug discovery, there are so many different buckets and areas where AI is really starting to step in and being able to make a massive efficiency and overall accuracy improvement. That again, it's almost kind of like this tidal wave that can't be stopped, but in a lot of ways for the better. So as we saw even during COVID time in a lot of countries, and this was even adopted heavily in Europe, during COVID, when people were infecting other people and in a hospital and on a bed, obviously those nurses and those frontline doctors and workers were getting exposed. And so those places that had these AI technologies in place We're able to bring in robots that were able to monitor health, take temperatures, provide pills for medication, et cetera, without putting those doctors at risk. So there are a lot of areas that this started to become adopted and make a huge difference. One of the biggest things you'll see across disease detection has been proven by the American Cancer Society. What they found is that 1 out of 2 healthy women are actually incorrectly diagnosed as having cancer. Imagine that, guys. 50% of women are being incorrectly diagnosed with different types of cancer. Obviously, on this photo here, the most commonly one that they refer to is breast cancer. On the flip, using AI to help with detection, AI has been found to create a 99% accuracy, and it is able to do that accuracy and give us the results at 30 times the faster speed. So not only does this result in less time waiting, it greatly reduces the need and the frequency and amount of biopsies. And again, we're getting it wrong 50% of the time as humans, but the AI machines, softwares are getting it correct 99% of the time. So again, when we look at this gigantic discrepancy, we can see why in this situation, AI is so vital. And so now when they look at different patient and doctor type of approaches, what they're finding is that, yes, knowing this now, people are a lot more open to wanting to adopt AI. So it's one of those things where on the front end, there's natural hesitation. It's something new. It's something different. We don't know if we can trust it. We don't know if it's going to work for us. But then you see examples like this, and that obviously, especially for anybody that's had to, deal with something like this, it's a no-brainer in terms of what it's able to do. Which segues us not in terms of everything that's going on from a healthcare standpoint within medicine, but now how is AI entering the world of dentistry? And so now we can focus on what's going to be affecting us on a day-to-day basis. Now, what dentists are going to be doing, they're going to be using AI to improve clinical accuracy, strengthen case presentation, and build patient trust. So if the softwares that are there that we're about to dive into can help us diagnose better and help us have a better case presentation. You imagine case closure being such an important part, something I lecture on a lot. People think that they're in the 70 or 80%. The average case closure is around 50, and for cases over $1,500 is actually in the 20 to 30% range. So having another diagnostic tool that we can present to our patient, guys, just goes that much further in generating trust and helping us close cases. Now, AI has been in dentistry in some different forms. Some of you may have seen this at some dental trade shows. The Yomi machine, an AI machine, which is actually does the implant placements all by itself. The CT guide and the implant placement with the actual surgical handpiece is pretty wild how it works. So AI has already entered dentistry in different forms. But of course, from our hosts at Pearl tonight, what we really want to focus on is what it is doing from the diagnostic side, specifically in the world of radiology. So why is this so important for us? Because when we look at the basic stats, what we find is that we are taking over 1.4 billion dental radiographs every single year here in our country. And we compare that to other medical fields. And basically, guys, dentistry is taking 86% of that kind of piece of the pie, right? We're the field that relies on radiographs to do our job, to be able to diagnose properly, and then to be able to treat accurately. So our ability to do a good job and provide good treatment is incumbent on us being able to identify and diagnose things properly, right? And all the time we think that we are really accurate at doing this, but we're going to show how maybe that's not quite the case. Now, what's unique is that when you think about radiographs, all of the different radiographs that are out there are essentially different shades of gray. And to show just how big this discrepancy is between humans and AI, know that the human eye is only capable of seeing between 30 to 50 shades of gray. And don't ask me if that's why they wrote that book and that movie. I have no idea. But the human eye can only see between 30 to 50 shades of gray, whereas the AI technology can see upwards of 500 to over 750 shades of gray. So imagine both the AI software and our own natural eyes are looking at the same image, but our ability to discern those shades of gray in comparison to the AI is literally just not even in the same ballpark. Therefore, the AI technology that we're going to talk about with Pearl, thanks to the ability of it to discern so much more, all that simply means it's a win for us, because it means that we're going to have a technology that's going to be able to discern, point out, and provide us with more information and data better than our human eye is going to be able to see. Now, the first time I heard about this, I was a little hesitant and I got almost a little offended, because it's like, well, I was trained to read radiographs perfectly well. I think I do a pretty good job. I'm sure all of you on this call feel the same way. But a couple tests help demonstrate why the AI software is a great additional set of eyes and tools for us. So what they did is they took a group of 136 dental professionals. They introduced them to different radiographs on an FMX, and they played a very simple game with them. They showed them, for example, this tooth number 3. And the simple question they asked is, do you see anything wrong with this tooth? Sounds like a simple question. We all will say that, well, we can read radiographs perfectly well. And I'm sure those of you looking at that image right now have already come up with your own answer. But what they found with that group of 136 of our colleagues was that there was absolutely no agreement. Half of the group said there was no decay. The other half said there was decay. 60% said there was recurrent decay. 40% said there was no recurrent decay. We're looking at the exact same film, but we're coming up with completely different responses. In fact, when they looked at that patient's entire FMX with this group of 136 people, what they found is that there was a diagnostic concurrence of under 50%. So we're all looking at the exact same radiographs at the exact same FMX, yet less than 50% of the time did we even agree on the same image that we were looking at. And when they looked at the treatment costs in terms of saying, in your hands, what would it take to treat this FMX patient from A to Z? Look at the range that they found. They found a range from as little as $300 to treat this patient to as much as $36,000. So the point that's been trying to be made is that it's not that we can't individually see things well, but the fact of the matter is that we interpret things very differently. And in more clinical, practical senses, if we had all the time in the world to sit there and take a deep view and analyze every radiograph, we would probably do a better job. But what's the reality when we're at practice, guys? We've got one patient in the chair. We've got 2 people in the waiting room. We've got the hygienist coming and saying that they need to do a check. We've got another guy pissed at the checkout, and all we're doing is running back and forth room to room. So how much time are we as dental clinicians, our hygienists, et cetera, really being able to have to sit and to go through a detailed view of all their radiographs and discern all of that? The reality is we're so busy and jumping around so much that we're simply going to, the numbers games show that we're simply going to miss things. And that simply means that there's treatment that's out there that is not getting diagnosed. There's treatment out there that's not getting treated, which means production is going down. And obviously, at the end of the day, it's the patient care and our overall practice revenue that is suffering, right? So know that the AI within this dental software is not there to do any diagnosis on our behalf. The diagnosis is ultimately the job of you, the dental professional. It is simply there to act as an extra set of eyes to bring your attention to certain areas that may be of concern, so that you will be able to actually take a look at that and be able to then go forward, make your diagnosis, and treat. So to show another example of this, just looking at a study that Pearl did with over 8,000 and about 800 x-rays reviewed by 3 different dentists, what they found for their detection is that in only 4.3% of all of those almost 9,000 x-rays, and only 4.3% of those times were there a unanimous caries positive detection among these 3 dentists. So the point is, we see things differently, we interpret things differently, and again, what we're doing and what our opinions are actually not very concurrent. So why not get a program that's going to help us discern things and be more accurate? So the numbers prove this. 43% of decay right now on radiographs are undiagnosed. 43%. Think about this from a practice management and revenue production standpoint. 20% of caries that are diagnosed are actually not caries. And just as importantly, almost 50% of periapical radiolucencies on radiographs, guys, are undiagnosed. So think about production, think about patient outcomes and overall treatment. And unfortunately, of course, for us, think about liability, guys. It's there, but again, because either we're not taking good enough radiographs or we're again in a rush and we're just not paying attention to the whole picture, these things are being missed. And these are all things that the AI software not only is going to catch, but it's going to bring directly into our eyes, into our attention to make us aware. And holy cow, you're right. That is a periapical radiolucency. So when now we use Pearl software, we'll be able to, in real time, as soon as we take a radiograph or even accessing all of our patients' prior radiographs, regardless of the different type of dental systems you have in your practice, you're going to be able to look at an FMX view. You're going to know which specific films have been earmarked by the technology for having potentially different types of lesions. You're going to get bone measurements to the 100th of a millimeter. The decay, as you can see, is going to be not only specified, but you're going to see not only where it is, but how much of it is approximately in dentin and enamel. And you can have other forms of imaging to help you visualize things better and identify the decay, overhanging margins. And as you can see, the amount of detections the AI is able to provide us is just absolutely out of this world. Things like frication involvement, calculus presence, overhanging margins, impactions, open margins, root canals, you name it, a widened PDL. The amount of information the AI is able to identify, and again, simply bring to our attention. We are still the doctor. We are still the ultimate decision maker and the person that needs to make the diagnosis. But having something be presented to us and brought to our attention is simply going to help us do our job that much better and again, lead to better all over quality of outcome. We've seen this in the studies that have been done. When you combine both Pearl software and the dental professional, 37% more of disease is being detected. I can speak to this firsthand. I have been fortunate enough to have Pearl's technology in my practice now for about 2 years. And the difference having Pearl versus not, again, is night and day. I can tell you also for general practitioners that are in the practice, newer associates that are in there as well, their quality of work and their ability to identify and discern has also gone up simply because we've got this extra visual aid that's helping us simply do our job better. Now, there's a couple other features outside of the clinical side itself, which are really important to point out. One is the actual software platform itself. You can see, very easy to see. You'll have the ability to look at your schedule for the day and every day moving forward. What's amazing about this is not only do you see your patients for the day, you can see those that the AI technology has made possible detections on. You can see those marked. You can get your overview for the day and not only see who is due for updated radiographs, which is great. So it will color code specify who's due for an FMX and who's due for a bite wing. It will tell you who's overdue for things like perio charting as well, which is great. And as you can see on that top bar, you'll also get more data in terms of specific potential opportunities for things like implants, restoration, scaling, root planing, etc. So this is vital for me as a practitioner because before my days even started, or as I'm looking at my week as a whole, I'm going to be able to see this stuff before I've even come into the chair and seen the patient. So now I'm so much better prepared, not only for that individual patient, but for my day. And why this is so critical also is because this is a huge asset for your front desk. Because now your front desk, before your patients have even showed up for the day, have an idea of what possible options are out there. And from a management standpoint, what's so critical is that they can actually print out a day sheet for the day. And on that day sheet, not only will it specify what procedures your patients are coming in for, but with the software, you'll also be able to see what treatment plan work has not yet been scheduled, which is essential. So when they check out, we say, oh, we saw you came here today for your 2 restorations. That's great. But we can see here that you still have a scaling and root planing that's been treatment planned, but not yet been scheduled. How about we get you scheduled for that for your next visit? That is all going to be in that software. That's critical as well. And now new technology that they're also bringing in is going to provide things even like taking care of the insurance payment process. So your patients will know instantly what their benefits are, what's going to be covered, what's not. All of these things are able to be provided via this Pearl AI software. It is a game changer. It's something that's going to be valuable for your front office, for your back office, for your hygiene team, how much of a better job they're going to be able to do in preparing you when you come in for that consult. This is something that just helps the team all around. So the opinion, the software of Pearl is known as Second Opinion. As I said, it's not known as alternative diagnosis. You are the one doing the diagnosis. It is simply there to bring that to your attention. To date, it is still the world's most comprehensive FDA-cleared real-time AI diagnostic aid. So again, the proof is in the pudding. I've seen it firsthand, and it's making a remarkable impact on overall treatment and overall outcomes. So we wanted to leave some thoughts, some parting thoughts in terms of the future of AI. Where are things actually headed, and what's going to be going on in the future as we move forward? Well, a couple of things we got to keep in mind. Some future applications globally for AI. One is going to be using emotion AI for the early detection of things like mental health issues and things like autism. So again, this is going to be another big leap in the medicine field. Personalized healthcare services, ambient intelligence, and the diagnosis of chronic disease. So some of these future scopes that we're identifying right now are really through the roof. And you look at the different industries that are starting to incorporate AI. We already talked about the auto industry, but now we look into banking, we look into education, construction, manufacturing, all the different fields that are out there are starting to see ways that they can make their basic platforms far more efficient, far more productive, and far less time. So again, AI is something that's simply going to be here to stay, but hopefully in a very positive way. And again, thanks to those regulatory bodies, we've got some level of protection, and hopefully it will remain to stay that way. Now, within the dental standpoint, thanks to our friends at Pearl, some other things that are coming down the pipeline, all the radiographs, guys, that we showed are our typical 2D radiographs. So taking a pan, taking an FMX, taking, bite wings, etc., will automatically be incorporated into the software. But what's so incredible is that now Pearl's technology is also going to start to apply to 3D CBCT images. So what will happen is that you will have, if you've got your CT machine in your office, you will be able to take your CT image of whatever it is for your case that you're treatment planning. That CT imagery will go at the same time onto Pearl's software. Now, keep in mind, to help explain this, let's say you have, what are the softwares out there? Patterson software, right? Obviously, as our host, you're using Patterson, you're taking your radiograph, you've got all of your software, your patient notes, everything on Patterson. You will still continue to use Patterson the same as you were before. But what is going to happen is on another screen, you're going to also have Pearl software open at the same time. So what's going to happen is that within Patterson, as you take your image, right, you take your digital radiograph, the exact same time it comes up on your patient's chart via your Patterson software, it is also going to come up instantaneously on Pearl. So you're going to be able to see it on the regular view and on what Pearl is going to show you, which is great because now when I'm doing an exam, I'm in the room, I'm looking at the radiograph, I'm describing what I see to the patient as always, but then I'm also bringing in that AI image on the other screen and saying, not only is this what I'm seeing, but look at what the AI technology is finding as well. And I do the contrast with the colors. I show them that specific. So for those patients that are maybe not sure, hey, is this guy trying to fudge me into doing a crown or whatever's going on, right? You've got this extra layer that's helping and being so important for case closure. Well, again, with the CBCT technology, same exact thing. You would take your CT scanning image with whatever CT machine you happen to have, but then that image can also be automatically uploaded through the Pearl software instantaneously. So it will also help you in the ability to read those images, whether it be, again, for those same types of things, as you can see on here, pathology detection, which is huge on a CBCT, radio opacities, where the nerve is located, missing teeth impactions, the whole 9 yards, right? So bringing this up to now, not just a 2D, but now elevating that into the 3D world. Again, this is yet another leap, and this is happening in a dramatically quick and short period of time. So this is another big jump in a positive direction in terms of where things are headed. So really excited to see that coming down the pipeline. Now, also what we're finding is that there's going to also be leaps in large language models. So basically, that means that this software via Pearl and AI as a whole within dental is going to help take over a lot of things and be more efficient. Things like appointment scheduling, frequently asked questions, pre and post-op instructions. We're going to be able to get those in a far more efficient way. This also makes a big deal, guys. I talk about this in a different lecture. About 80 to 85% of new patients that call an office, they're office hunting, they've moved to a new city, they want to find a new dentist. 80 to 85% of those patients that call a practice, guys, are being either put on hold, sent straight to voicemail, or never even pick up the phone. So you imagine now if we've got a AI software that is going to also help communicate with patients, get appointments set up, and get that new patient in the door for you to see for the first time, that's also going to have a big impact on overall, practice management and numbers. So that's something from the patient side. And again, for us as practitioners, we're going to get additional layers of diagnostic assistance with things like medical records and patient history, generation of clinical notes. God, nothing's more annoying than finishing the day and knowing you've got a whole host of notes to go. I like to do mine after each procedure, but it doesn't matter if you do it right after the procedure at the end of the day. If you're seeing 20 patients that day, those are 20 notes that you got to go and write all out. But now if you've got AI that you can literally set up templates that you can speak to, that it can do all of this stuff for you ahead of time, and following proper HIPAA guidelines and proper liability standpoints. Again, that's another big jump forward. Time, efficiency, and energy from our end is going to be significantly saved as well. So again, a lot of positive things with this type of technology that are slowly working their way down the pipeline. Now, when we look at outside of dentistry and healthcare, when we look at the globe overall, you can see the direction that AI is going in the healthcare market. You can see region by region, obviously key players in the market. Everybody's probably heard of NVIDIA. We know companies like Philips and Micron and Siemens and Google, of course. But what you can start to see now is that as this tends to grow now, the growth rate between now and the next decade, they're expecting a growth rate of over 45%. So this is going to keep growing that much more. You look at the global market analysis by 2033, you can see the breakdown between virtual assistant, clinic, lab, and hospital settings about where this AI is going to go. The significant drivers is going to be the gradual decline of the number of physicians, but then again, this lack of skilled workforce is going to be another way in which this AI is going to be able to start filling in the gaps. So there's a lot of positive things that are coming, and this is really, like I said earlier on, this is a tidal wave that is literally coming through one way or the other, and hopefully in the right way. And fortunately for us within the dental world, this is something that's working to our benefit rather than to our detriment. In closing, a couple of things I want to say, which are really good. This was at a dental conference. A colleague of mine was at, sent me this photo. This conference was simply specifically on AI in the more of the manufacturing world. But what did they have a slide on? This was great, made me feel very good. The least likely jobs likely to be replaced by AI in the coming 20 years. Look at the number 2 and the number 1. Number 2 being priests, number 1 being dentists. And the thought is, why on earth? But it goes back to what we spoke about earlier in regards to empathy, guys. So there is such a deep rooted, obviously, fear and anxiety between the dental world, as we all know. However, the only thing that a dentist trusts less than the dentist they spent years getting to know is now going to another one and having a robot take over. So this is really working in our favor. So as I like to close when I gave this lecture, it proves two things. The two things people are afraid of the most in the world: you've got religion and you've got the dentist. Obviously, that's a joke, but you can see that it looks like we are in safe hands overall. So in conclusion, wanted to mention a couple quick things. First, from what we said in our talk, as we said, AI is a growing industry at an exponential rate. It's going to be projected to just expand further. Despite the trust and job displacement fears in the general workforce, within healthcare, AI, again, is proving to aid to do a simply better job in diagnostics. Don't ever forget that breast cancer example. That is a shocking example, and overall treatment outcomes. Regulatory bodies do exist, so we don't have to be afraid of the fact that our genetic information is out there and AI might be, able to violate that. However, with this exponentially booming growth, we also have to increase security protection, right? To help as this grows, that we continue to have security backing us up as well. Now, thanks to Pearl and our amazing software known as Second Opinion, we've found AI's great use within dentistry, within the imaging standpoint. It can help provide and integrate all phases of our treatment from both administrative and clinical care. And at the end of the day, everybody wins. Our patients get better treatment. We get better diagnostic abilities, better outcomes, and obviously better revenue and production for our practices. So with that being said, from the city of Boston, again, for those of you on the East Coast, thank you for staying up. As Sheila mentioned, before I go to questions, I did want to introduce to you a coaching program being launched in 2025. As she mentioned, my program is called Mastering Clinical Confidence in Surgical Cases. So the basic overview for this, real quick, guys, is going to be the challenge right now for those of you who are starting to go after doing more surgical cases and try and get more involved with perio implants, whatever it might be. At the end of the day, there's limited experience in a lot of these techniques. A lot of times you got to go take a lot of weekend courses. It lasts one day. You have no feedback. You have no follow-up. There's a lot of uncertainty about best practices and workflows and, again, patient expectations. So we're introducing a 6-month mastermind type of clinical training program. There are going to be 2 coaching calls per month over 6 months, be access to sponsors, best practices, technologies. At the end of the day, guys, as a specialist practicing for 15 years, there's a lot of lessons I've had to learn the wrong and the hard way. I have a lot of scars, and the goal is to try and provide all of you with best practices to help you avoid those pitfalls, be introduced to the best technologies like Pearl, of course, that could be implemented into that. So for those of you who are general practitioners or even specialists who are looking to really raise your bar and have more information, this is really going to be of pertinence to all of you. So we're going to be launching that program March 1st. We already got a lot of sponsors on board and people registering. So for any of you who are interested in more information on that, please send me a direct message on Instagram. You can see my Instagram QR code here. And again, I look forward to hopefully connecting with you guys in more detail on that coaching program. But again, thanks both to Patterson and to Pearl. Here you're seeing my info. Please, again, reach out with any questions, DMs, whatever you need. And again, I will stick around right now to answer any questions that you guys have relative to tonight's course. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shamardi. Wow, like there's a bunch of thank yous in the chat, so I want to make sure that you heard that. And I do have a couple questions for you, so thank you for hanging around. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is just get this up for everyone if they're wanting to see how it can look in their own practice. But while we're chatting, we'll leave that up for them. Question for you, what would a consent form for AI look like? Do you have a sample? Have you grabbed that for your patients? What's your been experience as you implemented it?
Yeah, it's a great question. There really is not a set one yet. So I impose, right now for consent, we're not using AI to actually do the physical treatment yet. So there is not a consent form per se, like when I do an extraction and I have to give a consent form for that and a patient needs to know the risks. So right now, since this is simply a diagnostic tool, right, this is simply going to be something that we're using to help aid us. So it isn't something we're giving our patients in terms of, their actual treatment work. So there isn't anything for that yet. However, as I alluded to, as AI starts to have a bigger role, it's going to start going into more of the treatment phase. And then I imagine we're going to start seeing those. And again, what the plan is that the AI technology is not so much you're going to have a form for the AI, but the AI is going to help generate those consent forms for a lot of these procedures. So as of now, there is not an AI specific consent that I'm seeing that's out there. It's more just how we're putting that to use.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I hope that answers the question. You can type it back in if you needed more information.
Sure.
And a couple questions about accuracy, as you can imagine. Lots of questions about what about when you can see it, even with the naked eye, you could see some caries on one radiograph, not on the other. add into that? Because there was another question that touches on this. What about the quality of the image, elongation, whitewashing, cone cutting, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
How does all of that fit into accuracy? If you could just speak to that.
Yeah, so a couple things that are really important, guys, to note with that is that, first of all, at the end of the day, the image on the CT, excuse me, on the AI via Pearl is only going to be able to give you a good result based on your image. So in other words, it doesn't take away our need to take a good image. It's not like, you know what, I can just take a really poor image, very poor, it's too dark. It's completely, the teeth are completely crossing over each other, and the AI is just going to magically figure it out. Ultimately, guys, the actual quality of the image itself is going to be the key. So if you happen to take an image where there's a lot of very poor angulation, for example, and it's muddling things together, well, just like you would for yourself without any AI, your first thought is going to be, you know what, I need to take another image at a different angulation so I can see this better. Right? So there's no difference with that. Now, the good news is that with the proper imagery, again, what you're seeing is that the accuracy of the technology not only is extremely high, but as it learns and as the technology keeps getting better, it's simply going to keep getting better and better. So you're going to see more and more accuracy. The bottom line, though, to keep in mind at the end of the day, everybody, is that you are still the doctor. You are still the one diagnosing. So it's not very common, but every now and then Pearl may point something out and say, hey, potentially this might be some kind of an open margin, or this may be the beginnings of decay, but it's up to you ultimately to go and look and make sure that maybe it isn't that, or maybe it's something else. So the accuracy is extremely high, but at the end of the day, you have to keep in mind that it's still not taking the responsibility out of our hands. We still have to do our job. So the key is that it's able to give you that added set of eyes and bring your attention to it. Because what's going to happen is that we're going to be in such a rush going through our hygiene exam and having two patients in the room. We're not going to take a detailed look of that radiograph and that FMX. But if it points it out, now when I enter that room, I can look and say, okay, there's 4 things that have been pointed out right there. I may have missed 2 or 3 of those. So now is bringing my attention to it. I can go look at it, confirm or deny whatever it might be, and now I can have that discussion. So it's streamlining that process, and again, helping me have more of that information in a better sense.
Yeah, exactly. And the only thing I want to add to that, if I may, is I've heard reports of practices not unlike when you first start using intraoral scanner to take your digital impressions, and you start looking at your preps differently. Your teams start looking at their radiographs differently, and they'll end up
Yes.
naturally just they're paying more attention to those bite wings than they ever did before, and so that
Yes.
naturally sort of improves with the team as well. There's a
Absolutely.
question in here about when the patient is given a copy of their radiograph, do you include the AI information? So we know that it's possible to do printouts with the detections, and there's a great use case for this when it comes to sending into benefit plans. But what are you doing, Dr. Shamardi?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. You have the ability, which is really nice, because you can actually, as you said, print that screenshot out and provide that. So you're simply able to say, not only is this what I'm seeing, but here's also what the AI is seeing. So it gives you that added layer if you wanted to, which for me is very valuable in the treatment planning consulting visit to be able to show. But certainly with that software, you have the ability to not only, print that out, but, it has that detail on there. So certainly that's just one other layer that helps even more, I find.
Yeah, for sure. And it helps that decision-making process if suddenly you've seen, the college student who's just come home from university and has has a bunch of suddenly detections. Where'd this come from? It helps the whole family make the decisions about what they're going to do for their treatment too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Um, One more quick question, it looks like, about what sensors work with the software. And you spoke to it a little bit, and you spoke about how, the sensors themselves, yes, I mean, Pearl works with most of them. But if you have, for example, if you have EagleSoft, you're not even having Pearl Second Opinion in another window. It's going to be already there. So your current workflow is
Correct.
not even going to change. So it's going to be natively integrated in there, which is really wonderful and perfect. That was the question just that came
Oh,
in.
there
Is
you
Pearl a
go. Yep.
standalone or does it integrate into your already software? Yes. So Pearl is natively integrated in, it's between 20 and 30 imaging systems, softwares, PMS systems. So definitely take out your phone, scan this code so you can see what it would look like in your own software, because the Pearl standalone is absolutely available. However, it might already be internal of what you already have, and you can just turn it on. So for example, like an
Yes.
EagleSoft, it's there, it just needs to be turned on. So the whole process for your team doesn't change at all. So you can really see it for yourself.
Correct, correct. And again, that's what's so useful is that a lot of the softwares, it's already integrated. The other ones, no big deal. You have it screen right next to it. And again, as time has gone on, I've even seen in these 2 years through you guys how many more of these programs are adopting this and implementing this. So this is something that you're just seeing go up that much more.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, we seem to be right on time. And any
Perfect.
final thoughts, Dr. Shamardi? There's been lots of comments in the chat about people just so grateful and where can they find more information from you. So we'll make sure you get all those
Yeah,
links.
yeah, no, I really look forward to hopefully having people connect. If you didn't get that QR code to see me on Instagram, it's just at Dr. Sam Shamardi. Again, would love to connect with everybody on that. And again, as far as the lecture, like I said, these are exciting times. Being able to have this software has really been a big game changer for the practice. And, you know, we've seen, or I've seen how much it's done within radiology. And I'm sure as time goes on, we're going to just see more adoption of AI technologies, not just within radiology, but we're going to start seeing it in other areas. So ultimately, I think we can have a little bit of reassurance as a field that our job is not being taken over, as we saw on that last slide. So I think there was this natural fear, like everybody does, that, well, what's going to happen to us? But fortunately, you know, our job is going to be there, and what the AI is simply going to be doing, it's just going to be helping us do our job better. So at the end of the day, I think this is a big victory all around, and really, I encourage everybody, even if you're not ready to you know, get it into your practice tomorrow, just have a talk with Pearl and just take a look at it, do a run through, see it for yourself. Obviously, guys, the proof is in the pudding. Once you have a chance to at least take a peek at it, you know, at least you'll have a better understanding. And you know, I can't speak enough about what it can do.
Oh, thank you so much. The only thing I want to add before you pick off is, if you're going to, when you scan that code, be sure to mention to the representative that you speak to that you were here on this webinar. They'll know,
Yes.
and you'll be able to activate a first month free. So risk free, try it for yourself, see how it works, see how you feel, see how your team reacts. So I'm going to encourage that. But thank you so much, everyone. We're really happy that you're here, and thank you.
Thanks
Really
so much,
appreciate your time.
guys. Everybody have a great night. And again, hope to be in contact with everybody. So have a best again at Dr. Sam Shamardi, and have a great night, and hopefully see you guys again.